All right. Welcome back to the UnNamed Production Company. Today's video, we're going to be continuing our hashtag RPG a Day 2018 questions. The goal tonight is to answer questions 4, 5, and 6, as today is the 6th, and that's how it goes. We'll make sure to put links in the description below where you can find, the blog kind of describing the whole thing and the infographic, so you can follow along. We would also recommend, if anybody is following along, watching the video, if you guys make your own videos, if you post something on a blog, on Facebook, wherever, let us know in the comments. I'm giving you permission to spam your video in the comments of our video if you want, because we want to be able to follow you. Just make sure you use hashtag RPG a Day 2018 or just hashtag RPG a Day. Either will work. But also, we'll make sure that we link the first 3 questions, the video that we did. They are on the channel, so obviously you'll probably see those, but we'll include them in the link, in the description below, in a link so that it's easy to find. So we are the UnNamed Production Company. It's our goal kind of to create a community that can help people who are particularly streaming their games online to have a bit of a better streaming experience, but also just to create a cool community of people that, are enthusiastic about role-playing games and that want to kind of help, whether that is with art assets, music, streaming help, tech tutorials, or just cool people to bounce ideas off of. So there will be more in the weeks and months to come, so check that out. But in the meantime, we'll just jump into it. And I figure what I'll do is, when I kick it over to you guys, if you just want to, you just quickly say who you are, and if you want to plug your individual channels or whatever, you can do that as well. But we're going to start with question 4 of hashtag RPG a Day 2018, which is, what is the most memorable NPC that you guys can think of, whether it's in your own game or a different game or whatever? Most memorable NPC. So does anybody want to be brave and volunteer to go first?
Yeah. You can go first if you want. That's how you raise your hand.
Sure, I'll go first. Why not? All right. Hi, my name is Caleb. My channel is called Realms of Darkness, and right now is a bunch of RPG reviews up there, but my channel is going to be focused more on sci-fi and hard role-playing games, with reviews on there also. All right, so for question 4, to me this was a little tricky because question 5 is kind of very similar. But question 4, what is the most memorable NPC? And I took this as, what is the most memorable one to me? And for me, this was a character, an NPC that I played in a Vampire the Masquerade LARP, actually. Now, if you don't know how LARPs work, LARPs are usually, you play like a player character, and then you can also, a bunch of people play NPCs for like a set role. I kind of had permission to use this NPC like in multiple sessions, and I kind of gave him his own personality. And I would like jump in, surprise guest in certain LARPs and everything. And it was character's name was Raze. It is in the vampire role-playing game was Clan Nosferatu, which are think Count Orlok. Like they're all deformed, very bat-like. They usually can't operate out in public. Amazing stealth powers. They're called the sewer rats. So I used to wear like a hoodie up, and I used to have crazy stealth powers. And just overall, it was really cool that it was an NPC, but I was given like full control over it. And I would come back, jump in certain sessions, and just it made a huge impression on me. And I was like, out of all the NPCs that I've made or done, this definitely stood out to me as a Raze from Clan Nosferatu for Vampire the Masquerade.
Awesome. That's cool. I've never LARPed before, so I've never quite had that experience, but that's really neat. What
I used to be a big LARPer. I don't do it as much now, but yeah.
Nice. That's really cool. So was it just like your ability to sort of get into the character and really like embody that headspace and really like feel that character, you know, kind of coming through you that made it the most memorable? Or
After the first couple, it was like I was the character, and I think it was more because it was the LARP setting.
yeah.
It's just like it was me. I was like channeling me through that. It was just a really cool, because it was like an NPC. I didn't create the character, but I just took him and made him me, and it was just a really fun experience.
Awesome.
Very, very memorable, which I was like, that's perfect for this.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's great. Cool, man. Well, thanks for sharing.
No problem.
Why don't we kick it over to Samuel next? So again, what is the most memorable NPC that you can think of?
All right. Real quick, if you have any photos of you LARPing as that Nosferatu, that would be awesome to see. Just yeah, no judgment, because I have LARPed before. I just the image of you with your hood up just seems like.
Yeah,
I will see if I have some. Yeah.
And if anybody watching this video wants to see that, put that in the comments. Let us know that you want to see maybe like hashtag Nosferatu.
Have pictures.
Yeah. So yeah, let's make that a thing.
Yeah, let's definitely make that a thing, and then Nate can make it into a meme. So Caleb did a shout out to his channel. Was that your channel, your real channel, or was that for the Unnamed Production channel? I can't.
No, that is my YouTube channel, Realms of Darkness.
All right. I'm just saying that so now I have permission to shout out to mine. Three Gorillas Entertainment. Check us out. Facebook. It's all about fate and doing dumb things on in fate in one of my podcasts. So look it up. So yeah, most memorable character. This is to me the most memorable character, probably to me and to my brothers, since it's our home game. It's Dr. Crowler from my homebrew campaign. He is an escaped prisoner turned pirate doctor alchemist who regularly used his crew for experiments. He had a penchant for literally like we were playing a pirate game. So my brother, my brother's the captain, and you know my other brother's the first mate, right? And they're doing all kinds of craziness. They pick up one PC. My wife's character from basically break her out of a jail, and then she invents an NPC on the spot. It's like, I know a doctor, you know, so I had to come up with his personality and everything just right on the spot, and I just came up with the most anime doctor on a pirate ship I could think of, where he's just a little bit unscrewed and has no morals when it comes to experimenting. Literally, he'll be walking across the boat, the deck of the boat, and just like inject someone with something and be like, okay, come back in 1 hour and tell me what you feel like, and just like, or take blood from another person. Whenever they land, he gets off the boat with just a bag full of money that the captain didn't say he could take. He's like, where are you going? He's like, I'm buying stuff for you. So and he just walks off with a bunch of the crew. The crew was more afraid of the doctor than they were of the captain. It was just, I don't know, it was just a really fun NPC to play. So, and he inspired a PC later on. Someone played his daughter. So it was a fun NPC. So I'll never forget him.
That's amazing.
That's really cool. Like a legacy character is made out of it too. Yeah.
Yeah. And she played that character for a long time.
Awesome. Is that featured on the podcast? Can people hear that character?
Unfortunately, Crowler exists only in my personal home game from a few years back. Yeah, he doesn't exist anywhere else except for that, unfortunately.
Nice. No worries. Well, that's cool. That's awesome that's so memorable. We'll make sure to put links for the podcast as well in the description so you guys can check that out. If you're into Fate, even if you're not into Fate, still go check it out because it's great. Cool. Well, that does sound like an awesome NPC. I love that. I love this question and the next one because when you think about like most memorable NPC, I think the coolest thing about this question is that they almost seem like real people, like real characters, right? And you know, sort of going back to question one, what do you love about RPGs, right? Like in a way, this ties in so well with that. So that's really neat. Cool. Well, Nate, how about you? You want to go next and answer the most memorable NPC that you can think of?
Sure. I'm Nate Thurston. I do Dragon's Blood on my channel over at Mr. Nate RPG, which kind of started off as a landing point for the recordings, and now I use it to show like how to use Digital Character Sheet, which is a program I sell over on DriveThru RPG. And yeah, hopefully I'll be getting more Dragon's Blood stuff up. As far as my favorite, or I guess I should say my most memorable NPC. So the game Dragon's Blood that I run takes place in a world called Hystera, but it's always kind of just been in the back of my mind. It's never been a place that I'd actually struck out to create until I started playing RPGs. And one of the first games I ran, it started off with my buddies in a very stereotypical dungeon. Some kobolds stole a necklace, and I didn't really know what I was doing with this necklace or anything like that. But one of the people that they met was this anthropomorphic rat man, and he wound up being named Neville. He has a last name that is escaping me at the moment, but he's most memorable to me because he was one of the first NPCs that I created that had a backstory that was part of this world that I was still forming in my mind. So he was actually in his former life, he was a small folk gunsmith. And so he got captured by another NPC named Lady Naladri, and she did some testing on him, but he broke free, but he couldn't go back home to his small folk wife. He didn't, but she accepted him for who he was, but he wanted to go out and figure out how to reverse this effect that he has been put under. So now currently he's an aging rat man, still out and about looking for a solution to his problem, but he has these custom made pistols that he's an expert at using. He's stealth rogue type character that is just really neat and sticks out to me as the most memorable NPC that I've ever created.
Yeah, that's amazing. That sounds really cool. Like where did you get sort of, I guess, the inspiration for that character in particular, or did it just sort of pop into your head and you're like, whoa, this would be cool?
I think, okay, I can remember. So I was running two games at that point. Though the second game, I was running that one, and Neville wasn't there yet. The other one I was running was fleshing out this concept of this bad guy, Lady Naladri, taking people and performing these bad experiments on them. And I had one guy play as a half basilisk, half human, and then another guy play as like a half Mothman, half elf or something like that. And then the idea of, well, holy crap, it dawned on me, there could be any number of combinations or any kind of people. And so I thought, I was playing actually Mice and Mystics with my daughter at the time. And so the idea of a rat man kind of struck me as, that'd be really cool just to have like not this like what you normally see with like Redwall or the cutesy little like rats, but like more like Splinter.
Yeah. Nice. That's cool. I don't know that I would classify Redwall as cutesy. That's savage as hell. But yeah.
Art style, I guess, is more what I'm referring to.
Yep, I gotcha. Nice. Yeah, that sounds really cool. I don't know. I love sometimes those like really weird characters that you're just like, what the? That's awesome. Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, Rory, how about you? Most memorable NPC?
I'm a fan of meta humor, and in one of my early games that I was DMing for friends at my house, I made the classic mistake of giving out too much treasure all the time, and somebody made the offhand comment that like, oh geez, I'm going to open this barrel and I'm going to roll to look in it, and Rory always gives us everything, like whenever we look at anything. So like, I wonder what would happen if I rolled a crit, and he rolled a crit. So I was just like, I made it up, and I was like, oh, you look in and you find a gnome named Ruby holding a handful of sapphires. And from there, Ruby went on to be their companion because they wanted to keep her around. And she was constantly stealing things, and it was super fun as a element to kind of get back at them for maybe being too happy by getting too much stuff. So I took it out on them by getting them into way more trouble than they probably even deserved. So Ruby was fun. She was a fun one to play.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that sounds really funny. And I could just imagine them being like, what? Are you kidding me? That's great. Yeah.
What do I get? I rolled a 20. I was like, you found an entire halfling, the whole thing, and a handful of sapphires, everything you could possibly want, and a person to carry them.
That's great. But the person's going to be obnoxious. You're welcome. Yeah.
Oh, no, she was actually super sweet to them.
Yeah.
It was just, picking everybody's pockets and putting it in their bags. That was the problem.
Oh, man. That's amazing. Oh, my gosh. Very cool. All right, well, I guess I go next. This is funny because question 4 and question 5 for me are the same NPC, but we'll start with, for me, the most memorable NPC was actually the NPC that I created for my Edge of the Empire game, Cordella. And she was a sort of the major domo for Durga the Hutt, who the characters kind of fell in, the wrong side of the law, so to speak. They did some things and it didn't go well, and then they ended up having to work for him. But they were nobodies, and so Cordella saw an opportunity to try to get them sort of into a spot that they weren't really in, but she was going to press her advantage. Which is cool. If you want to check it out, the game is on my YouTube channel, Chalice in Chains on YouTube, Sunday Sandbox. It was a lot of fun. Rory plays in that game as the Duro Slicer Hemi. And that game went all kinds of crazy. But what was most memorable for me about Cordella was that the sort of the mental space that I had to get into to play her made her a very memorable character, because she was not a nice person, but and she added a lot of sort of complication and strife to the characters' lives, but she was also very complicated in that, she wanted them to succeed. She actually had reasons for them to succeed, but she worked for a Hutt, right? So it was this battle, and it was interesting because there were several times where I was portraying her and they were trying to get any kind of information they could get, just kind of trying to turn the advantage to their side. And she was just not having it. And I felt bad because for me as the GM, I want to be a fan of the characters and I want to see them succeed and whatever, but I was trying to play this NPC authentically as I had her in my mind. And it was this balance of being very manipulative and wanting them to succeed, but not giving them too much, and also wanting there to be an out if they failed, so she could be like, whatever, So it was just she was not a great person, and I kind of had to embody that, and that was hard. But I think she was memorable. I think she was memorable for the players too. I mean, Rory could probably confirm. I think you're muted there.
Yes, I can confirm. Definitely memorable, but also hated her with every fiber of my body.
Yeah. Yep. And I did too, which I think is actually why she was so memorable for me, because I did not want to. There was a few times I remember where I'm like, oh, she's gonna be in this scene and I don't want to play her, but it worked out. So we'll go on to question 5. So this is the last question for the first week of RPG A Day. The themes are sort of what, how, describe, which, and share. So week 1 was all the what questions. And so the last one is, what, and then it's favorite recurring NPC. So mine's the same answer, Cordella, because she's, I haven't run a lot of campaigns. She kind of, and I haven't been in a lot of games that that extended multiple sessions. So for me, she was the most, she was my favorite recurring NPC, because while it was hard to play her, it was also fun to play her. So I'll leave it at that. But I think I will.
Can I
yeah.
hop on this one?
Yeah.
I have an interesting take on this one. I don't necessarily have one character, but I have one name, an NPC name that has reoccurred several times. In the very first game that I ever played in, the GM accidentally forgot to create like the second name for his other NPC. So they were Brevin and Brevin. So they had the same name. And one was a human and one was a halfling. And it was just so ridiculous. And he reoccurred in like several sessions in that campaign. And then one of the other people in the group jammed a game like months down the road that took place like prior in the same world, like 20 years earlier. And we unexpectedly rescued an NPC that he expected to have been gone. I mean, flayed alive, should have been gone. But according to the D&D rules and the spell, all the parts were there, so he could be brought back. So we brought him back in the clutch. The person decided to name him Brevin. So as that game went on, we decided that we rescued the original Brevin, who went on to become best friends with little Brevin, who then each got with different ladies. They had families, they had children, one of which was each named Brevin. And these adventures continued for hundreds of years down the road. And, we wrote it down. It's canon. That's my favorite.
That's silly. I like that though, because yeah, you're right. It's sort of not a recurring NPC, except that it sort of was in different iterations and different. Yeah, that's fun. That's really cool. Nice. Well, yeah, Samuel, if you want to go next.
Yeah, kind of to hop on that same little bandwagon of like I play a lot of one shots, but my most my favorite recurring NPC, even though I'm reinterpreting the word recurring here, a more like longest lasting NPC would be Jimmy, which it was the same campaign, the pirate campaign that I was talking about before. So one of the first things they do after they break people and they break out one of the PCs out of jail is they go to this dive port in the middle of like the sea. They're sailing a boiling sea, right? So and he makes a habit of doing that Pirates of the Caribbean scene where he just like recruits everyone in the bar, and one of the guys there is Jimmy. And he's always the most enthusiastic and most loyal member of the ship, who just happens to survive every massacre that happens, because he goes through like 5 crews. After every stupid major battle, he loses everybody. And then they're doing a head count. It's like, who's left? And Jimmy just pops out of the pile of dead bodies. He's just like, I'm alive. And the captain loved him. The first mate, which is my other brother, hated his guts, constantly sent them on suicide missions. Just go around that corner, check it out. tell us what happens afterwards. Gunfire, he comes back. He's just like riddled with bullets, but he survives everything. And that was not plot armor that kept him alive either. It was legitimate lucky as rolls. And I just love them, and I'm probably going to use them again.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Yeah,
I could just imagine too, like if it's been a while since you guys have encountered that NPC, and then like your brother's there, and all of a sudden you bring Jimmy back in, and he's like, no.
We still bring him up. My brothers, mainly one of them, the captain, has a habit of every campaign he's in, he recruits every NPC he enjoys. He just, if he even thinks one of them is slightly funny, he's like, oh, he's gonna be part of my crew. It's like, you're not a pirate anymore. This is a completely different campaign. I don't care. I want him around. Like, what's it gonna take to make this guy follow me around into dangerous situations? Like,
oh man, that's amazing.
Which forces me to name them, unfortunately.
Well, yeah. The burden of being a GM, that's why you got to get that name list. But yeah. That's awesome. That sounds like a really good character. Like that's hilarious. And it just sort of, I love it when the game conspires to make it just perfectly work out like that, you know,
Yeah.
where either you want a result to happen and you don't have to force it, that it just happens, or you don't want a result to happen, but it's kind of perfect. And then, you know, the game's like, yep, that's how it's going to be. Nice. That's awesome. Sweet. Well, who wants to go next? Caleb, you want to go? Alrighty. Sounds good.
All right. For me, this was actually a pretty easy one. I had a character in mind almost as soon as I saw this question. It's big surprise, another Vampire the Masquerade character. Tabletop this time, not LARP. Is the character Annabella. She is if you know the game, from the clan Zamisi, which are they're bad guys. They're the flesh crafters. She actually had dreadlocks, and like part of her dreadlocks was her flesh that she had sculpted. I made her more like, she was like more of a wild card, not good or bad. Half the time she'd come in, she'd actually screw over the party, and other times she'd come in and aid them. But the other thing about her is, this is about like 15 years ago in my early 20s. I had a lot of anger, anxiety, depression issues, and this is before social media. I didn't have any close friends, so I kind of like channeled all that into this character. So everyone thought she was kind of a crazy NPC that would come in, just wreck their lives, scoot off, come back, maybe help them. And so just the name of Annabella would like just frighten the PCs when I said it. And the funny thing is, I'm actually planning another big Vampire the Masquerade game, a new edition. I'm gonna bring her back.
Awesome.
So, Annabella, the flesh crafter.
That sounds like Vampire the Masquerade that I remember. Yeah, putting all that angst and whatever into your characters. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yep.
Oh man, bringing it back. Yeah, I'm looking at my, I don't know if it's second or third edition, but the Vampire the Masquerade. It was before V20 came out.
Third edition was called Revised. It wasn't actually called like third edition.
Yeah. It might be the revised one. I don't know. Well, I don't know. It says WW 2300, so whatever that means. But anyway, I love Vampire the Masquerade. I'm excited for the 5th edition. I don't have it because it's expensive, but
I got the PDF. I did the mess. I was a dumbass, and I did the huge Elder bundle pre-order.
Nice.
It came out at Gen Con, so I got a PDF because of the pre-order, and it is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, it looks sweet. The art.
The
looks
production
really
value.
Yeah.
I was shocked though. Just the production value on this book is amazing.
Yep. So hopefully, we'll get to see some Vampire the Masquerade on the UnNamed Production Company channel. We'll see. We might try to make it happen.
There will be. Maybe not right now, but there will be.
Brilliant. Okay, cool. Well, Nate, why don't we kick it over to you then for your favorite recurring NPC?
Yeah, that's going to be one that I mentioned earlier. Not Neville, though, whose last name I remembered is Brandywine, Neville Brandywine. But actually, it's Lady Naladri. So it's one of the things that I love the most about running games is the fact that the way I do it, and I think the way that a lot of people do it, is you've got a scenario set up, you've got a world, you've got things that are in place, and then you just set some people in there and you say go. And there were a lot of situations that I had no idea how they were going to turn out. And in fact, when I created Lady Naladri, I didn't even think to tie her to the players at all. She was just going to be this overarching kind of nemesis and all that kind of stuff. But it actually turned out to be the way the story was going. I made her into Rory's character, Tarask's mother. Spoiler alert, by the way, if you're watching it. But anyways, and ever since then, she's kind of been haunting him. Every so often, she'll pull him into the spiritual realm, and he'll have to deal with something with her, make a decision. And all the meanwhile, she's conflicted because she herself is this torn person who has had all of the goodness torn out of her and is basically an embodiment of evil. But she's still, this is her son, and so she's torn. There's still that shred of compassion and the reason I mentioned earlier, like why I love GMing, is because there were situations where she could have possibly died, or she could have possibly killed Tarask, her son, and stuff like that. And the decisions of the players and the roles and stuff like that have gotten us to where we are now, which is that she's basically redeemed, but she still exists. You know, she's in this last session, they actually Tarask just finally got contacted by her again. And she's planning on helping them now, or at least that's what she says. And that's been my favorite reoccurring NPC, because her story truly is just as dynamic as any other player character or anything I could have ever come up with by myself, just sitting and writing a story. I couldn't have written that. It took everybody in the game making the decisions they made and the roles they rolled to make Lady Naladri who she is as an NPC now. And I think that's just awesome. That's why you play the game.
Yeah, that's amazing. That it's so cool when stuff like that happens, where you sort of, maybe you have like a nebulous concept of this character, and then the players kind of flesh it out and make that character seem real. Cool. Well, that actually is kind of a good segue into week 2, question 6, and the theme for this week is the word how. So week 2, question 6 is, how can players make a world seem real? I think this is one of the best questions, I think, for anybody to answer, and I'm really happy that we're getting to do this in a group format, because I'm really interested to hear your answers on this. And I think I'll take this one first, but yeah, kind of, Nate, going off of what you were saying a little bit, it's when I think one of the coolest ways that the players themselves can make the fictional world that you're all playing in seem real is by injecting that emotion into their character and into the interactions, both with the other player characters and the NPCs. So, in that sense where you kind of, you feed them that hook a little bit, right? You give them just a little bit, and then they run with it and they take it and they internalize that. And I think a player who is really invested in the game, invested in their character, will start to feel those real emotions that their characters are feeling, and be able to sort of portray that back out to the other players. And so, it's, again, in my Star Wars campaign, there were a few times, whether it was with that NPC Cordella or with other NPCs or other situations where, the players, I know in one case we had one player character die, and then another, and then they were replaced by another character. And there was a few times where I know a couple of the players got pretty emotional about that scene, which was neat, because for me, I was like in my GM world and trying to manage everything, and so I didn't feel the emotional impact of it, but some of the players mentioned that they really did, and it was like, wow. So that's, I think, when a player is able to invest with that kind of sort of intensity into a game and start to allow their emotions to meld with the characters and the world around them, I think that's the best way that they can make a world seem real. But for me, I think that the way I find that I can most easily do that, or players can most easily do that, is with each other, right? So those moments when the PCs are acting together, when they are, whether it's antagonistic or they're working together, there can be really cool moments. Like, it was interesting. I was playing a game. Samuel was in this game too. It was Alan Holloway of Check for Traps was running it in, I forget what he called it, Savage Lands. And it's on his channel. You should check it out. But I think we did 2 sessions, and the first session, it was really interesting because I think Samuel and I's characters kind of were on. We didn't interact all that much because I was more interacting with a different character. But in the second session, it was very interesting. We had our characters at a much more sort of personal moment that I think, and this may have been a different character that Samuel was playing. I can't remember if he played a different one in that one or if he played the same character. But either way, it was really interesting because, this wasn't a campaign. This was just kind of a continuation of a previous game that we didn't have a lot of deep interaction with, but we took that moment and we were sitting at like a dinner and there was some banter, and then there was like, it felt like there was this actual connection between the two characters in a kind of an emotional way. And it's those moments, I think, when you can, as a player, connect with the other player, right? But you're doing it through the lens of the character. That's amazing. And that's, to me, again, how you really make the world seem real, because sometimes you don't get to interact with an NPC very much, or sometimes because of the way the game is being run, you kind of have to move things along. But when you have those personal moments, I think that's where it's at for sure. So cool. All right, Nate, you want to jump on this one?
Yeah, because mine's really quick. Honestly, I 100% agree with everything you just said, so I don't have to say any of it. I'll add one thing, and that is that I feel what makes a world feel real is when the players take it seriously. So it kind of goes along with the social contract of like, before you start a game, like a GM saying, here's what I expect. One of the things that I expect is that when I make a ruling, that's it. There's no questioning it. It's like, oh man, that just happened. You're not going to open up the rule books. You're not going to be like anything like that. You can just believe that happened. And then when the players can take everything that happens seriously, that makes everything just feel more real. That like, we're already in a world with dragons and basilisks and all these crazy things. So when you're in that mindset of, okay, I'm taking this seriously, you're going to be asking questions that make sense. Like, well, when I look at the basilisk, when I look at the fairy unicorn, do I see a slit in its armor? Is its horn twisted in a way that, so yeah, that's it.
Yeah, awesome. No, for sure. I agree. I think, buying into the game as a player and then really kind of taking it seriously and reacting as your character would in that fictional space. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Samuel, go for it.
Yeah, definitely to run with that. Something that I find really helps me whenever I'm a PC to just really invest in the game is just out of game. If like, even with a one shot, just out of game, talk to the DM and just ask him a couple questions about the world that you or your character would be interested in. Like whenever I do my podcast, my wife is constantly asking me about like how does magic work in my world and stuff like that, and then she weaves it into the game that same day so that we don't have to do exposition. We could just show, and that just makes the world feel more real, and it's pushed by the player entirely. That's just so I think that definitely helps.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you're able to sort of take the structure of the game world, right, and some of these things that your character would take for granted, but you as the player maybe are just figuring this out, being able to portray that through your character, I think that's huge, to be able to kind of make it all feel real. That's awesome. Sweet. Yeah, Rory, what's up?
So I think you guys basically covered a lot of the things that I would have said, and I think for like pre-built settings, like what most people are playing most of the time, I think that covers just about everything. I would just say for our audience, or who I think is our audience, and us, we play a lot of custom settings, and I think it's a little bit harder. Like, you have to do those things, and then you have to do a couple of other things. And one of the most important that I would say is break the preconceptions. Like, it's funny when we talk about things on Facebook or everything, it's like nobody has any preconceptions. We all talk about really crazy things and characters that you could do. But then as soon as you actually roll the dice, a lot of people, the mage becomes Gandalf, and the rogue thief becomes what's his name from Drizzt Tales. It's very repetitive stuff, not intentionally. So I think it's hard because when you get into someone's setting, they explain a lot of the mechanics because they're trying to make sure you can play the game, and you're trying to figure out what the world is about. But at the end of the day, you basically come away with, yes, there's magic. Yes, there's this. No, there's not that, and so on. And then you make a character. But I think, like you said, ask questions. I think that's important. Sam's right, because once you ask those questions, though, like, then just kind of break it a little bit and just kind of stack. And like when the GM says, like, these guys in white cloaks seem higher rank than the regular soldiers, start to let that. Like that, I'm using Game of Thrones here, but like start to let that, the GM thought that was important to point out. This is the type of world where there's this archetype over here. Be interested and learn about that. Like, if you're a warrior, find out why there are some warriors that are higher ranked than others. What makes them cool? Because it's the archetypes of settings that usually I think get everybody, right? Like in Lord of the Rings, the Ranger was so cool because Aragorn was so cool. He was your archetype, and you could say like, wow, like I want to make characters in that world because I'd make one just like that, and it would be awesome. Or I'd do something a little bit differently, but it would be basically like that. But you have to find a reality in their world to latch onto, and it's always best when it's something that you, the player, and your character would be interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think too, kind of to go along with that is like, as a player, if the GM throws you a bone like that or throws you a detail, especially if you know your GM and they're willing to allow you to embellish or they straight up ask you, roll with that, I know sometimes I've done this both as a GM and as a player. Like I'll sometimes straight up ask the character, hey, what would you know about this? Especially if it's thematic. If they're a rogue or they're a thief, and we're interacting with sort of a criminal organization, or they're a warrior, and they, maybe let's just say you're playing 5th edition, and maybe they have like a noble background, right? And so you might be like, hey, you notice these guys, they kind of look like knights, like, tell me something about these guys, right? Now, for some people, depending on the experience you're looking for, that can be very sort of immersion breaking and make the world not feel real. But depending on your play style, that's one way to do it as well, I think. So yeah, that's a really, really good point, Rory, for sure. All righty. Well, last but not least.
Most of the stuff that's been said is actually most of them what I was going to say too. But I think one thing I'll add is a good backstory. I got spoiled one time. This is back, I think, D&D 3rd edition. I don't remember if it was a homebrew game or a pre-built setting, but I asked characters give me a backstory, and what I got handed were literally like novels. And I was like, I remember reading them, and I'm like, I can take half the stuff they made, and I can just insert it into my world. And as they're going through it and they're seeing the stuff that they just created in the world, it really, like, to me, it helps bring that world alive. And actually, I've done that I'm in Nate's Dragon's Blood game too, and I think he gave me like a 1.5-page primer of the background. I think there was a war nest, so I said, my dad died in the war. Well, he's hinted that my dad's back now as an undead knight. I said in my character's youth, I was like part of a thieves guild. Well, and now in the present day, they're like one of the big political like thieves guild powers out there. So I think just like a good backstory, and a GM can take that stuff and insert it into their own world. It helps make the world seem more real. The players get more invested into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I mean, I think, like one of the things that is cool about like 5th edition D&D, for example, is that they have bonds, flaws, ideals, a background, you know, personality trait. And if you really use those, you know, and you try to play to that, I think that can be a powerful thing. You know, our friend Anthony is writing a module for Adventures League, and I was playing a rogue that I think had like, I forget if it was a personality trait or if it was a flaw or whatever, but one of them was, I don't see the risk in things. I just go. And then I also had like, I want to be the greatest thief, you know, or known as the greatest thief there ever was. And so what was happening was like when I was role-playing entirely based on these bonds, flaws, you know, and ideals. And it was funny because it was something that I probably wouldn't have done had I not had those there. I probably would have played that character very differently, but I'm looking at these and I'm like, oh, yeah, no, like he's not gonna bat an eye if somebody is like, this is crazy, right? Like, don't go do that. But like, what? There's no problem. Let's go into the cave with the dragon. We're gonna be fine, like, you know. And so, you know,
what could go wrong?
Yeah, like there's probably not a dragon there anyway, you know. I mean, and I literally, I think said those words, which was crazy. But so, you know, the point is like, sometimes the game will give you the tools to, as a player, to kind of help do that. And as long as everybody else and the GM are reinforcing that, then I think, you know, that's a great way to really make that world seem real.
I'll tell you, in Savage Worlds, I sometimes will give a certain amount of, I did this in Genesis too, where I'll give a certain amount of experience points or something like that if you write a good backstory.
Yep.
Because there isn't, Savage Worlds particularly isn't like a crazy level up kind of game. So it's a nice way to just get someone a level early. Yep. And move them to the next stage and have it kind of be for something. And I couldn't agree more. Like, backstories are so important. And, you know, we encourage players to do all types of things with bennies or with inspiration points or with whatever it is in whatever particular game it is. So why not, if backstories are so important, why not encourage them to do that too? So maybe that's something other GMs can steal or use, borrow.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially in Savage Worlds when it comes time for the dramatic interludes. And then you can, you know, when it talks about like what was something good that happened on this trip or what was a complication or what did you lose, whatever, right? Like if you have kind of a backstory, even if it's just a sort of a nebulous concept of it, that can kind of help you narrate that. So very cool. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for, you know, getting together again and answering these questions. I think that catches us up for today. We'll probably figure out a time. I don't know. It might end up being a few days from now, but we'll figure it out to answer some of the other questions. But we're up through question 6. So the next question, question 7, is kind of the opposite of this one. It's, you know, how can the GM make the stakes important? So we'll probably come back with another video here in a few days, answering a few of the questions, you know, coming up. But of course, we do want to hear from you. So, you know, make sure if you guys watch the video, I mean, give it a like if you like it. You know, if you don't like it, give it a thumbs down. That's fine. If you haven't subscribed already, do that, you know, and click that little bell notification so that you'll get notified when new videos come up. And let us know if you're participating in RPG A Day 2018. We want to know how you're doing it, where you're doing it. You know, some of the cool benefits of this sort of movement, this thing, is that sometimes you discover new people. You discover people that are in the hobby, that are passionate about it, that you haven't ever experienced before. And, you know, maybe you bring them into a game. Maybe you just get to view their content. Maybe you learn something. So anyway, this has been fun. Thank you guys again for participating, and I look forward to the next one.
All right, it's fun.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Take it easy, guys. Bye.